I mean, I wonder if I'm going to get the black lung drinking this stuff.
I think I'm getting the black lung, Bob.
Have you ever heard of coal mine aged whiskey? I hadn't either until I saw this bottle, and there's a ton of gimmicks out there in the whiskey and bourbon community as everyone's trying to find the next big thing in bourbon. Well, we might have another one right here. This is Brothers Wright coal mine aged Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. And in this video, I'm going to forecast whether or not I think it's whiskey worth spending your money on, or if we've got another gimmicky marketing ploy just to try to sell bottles. What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the Whiskey Weather YouTube channel. I am Brandon, a whiskey-loving TV meteorologist in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I'm giving you the latest forecasts and trends in the whiskey and bourbon world. If you're new to the channel, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoy what you're about to see. As we go forward, I want to know what you're drinking in your glass tonight. I, of course, have this Brothers Wright coal mine aged bourbon, but what are you drinking? Put that in the comment section below. Would love to hear it. So, in my glass, as I just talked about, I've got this Brothers Wright coal mine aged Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. Hadn't heard of it until my chiropractor Spencer gave this to me as a gift, so shout out to you, Spencer. I will say right away, there is a lot going on this label. As I hold it up there for you, you see there's a whole lot going on. It says Brothers Wright Rye coal mine aged single barrel bourbon. At the bottle it says Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. Okay, so the first thing I saw when I got this, it says rye. So I figured it was a rye, but it's a bourbon. So I'm going to assume it is a high rye, and of course it is. On the other side of the bottle, it's got the mash bill, and that comes in 70% corn, 20% rye, and 10% malted barley. I don't know if that's a unique mash bill to anybody. I don't believe that they are distilling this, because on the bottle, right there at the bottom, it says bottled by Brothers Wright Distilling Company in Aflex, Kentucky. We know that it is aged in Kentucky because it can't be called a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey unless it's been aged in the state for 2 years. And on the bottle, it says 4 years, 5 months as the age. So I wonder if that's all aged within the coal mine, or if it's aged for a certain portion of time. There's not a whole lot of openness on the bottle about what it is. It was put in entry location number 1, break First Main East, in the distance underground. So that's what makes this unique. Coal mine aged 480 feet underground, so roughly about 5 stories beneath the surface of the earth, which is kind of cool. I would say that's kind of similar to what Maker's Mark is doing with their cellar aged. You're not going to have a whole lot of variety in temperatures or even the pressures. On the bottle, it says, this is a truly new experiment in aging spirits. Pike County, Kentucky, 1913. The Lecky Collieries Mine number 1 opened. I hope I said that right. Supplying energy to our country during the greatest period of growth, it now has a new life, housing barrels of America's greatest spirit, Kentucky bourbon whiskey. Challenging the traditional whiskey aging environment, our underground facilities are designed to leverage control of temperature and pressure, cycling bourbon in and out of its American white oak cask. As our rickhouse expands, our expressions will continue to evolve through age and experimentation, innovating what it means to be bourbon. So grab a glass and enjoy some good company. Join us around our unique journey to produce some of the finest bourbon around. And as the bottle empties, we encourage you to explore our mind map on the backside. And it's going to be hard to see, but there is a map of the mine itself on the backside of the label. So the more you drink, the more it reveals. So as I mentioned, there's a lot going on the bottle. I just read you part of it. Also, this is a single barrel bourbon. It is a high rye bourbon, and it comes in at 103 proof. I did look up on their website. The MSRP on their website is right about $64.95. It is sold out. They've got a couple other expressions. They've got a wheated bourbon, they've got a 4-grain bourbon, and they also have a 4-grain barrel strength, as those go up a little bit in price as you go on. I did also see that these are on seal box right now, if you wanted to check them out as well. So what I read about them is supposedly one of the co-owners, Kendall Wright, not the Tennessee Titans football player, he actually discussed this idea with Lincoln Henderson back in the day. And if Lincoln Henderson's name rings a bell, that's because he's a pretty big name in the whiskey and bourbon community. Henderson was the master distiller for Brown-Forman for about like 40 years, and he's the guy responsible for what we now know as Gentleman Jack. He was also part of the foundation of Woodford Reserve. Yes, that Woodford. He was the guy who developed all of that. And then he retired. And then in 2006, Henderson also developed what we now know as Angel's Envy before he passed away in 2013. So they say this is partially the brainchild of Lincoln Henderson, who is in the Bourbon Hall of Fame. So pretty cool there. What I will say is if you get the bottle, there's a QR code that'll take you straight to their website. I'll put the link to the website below just so you can check them out. So what does it taste like? That is why you guys are here. So let's give it a pour. It's got a decent color to it, a little on the lighter side. I'd say a little lighter than amber. Not too bad though. And on the nose, right away, there's vanilla right up front. I get some earthy tones to it. Obviously, I'm not sure what to expect out of this. I have had a few pours and still can't put my finger on some of the notes. I would not expect to have any like dust or coal mine aging techniques to it to change the flavor. Just it's all the temperature really that's going to be changing how this tastes. It's got a pretty classic bourbon nose. You get a little bit of that higher rye coming through. I tend to get grape on the nose when it comes to rye. Sometimes mint. Having a hard time pulling mint out of this. There are some earthy tones. I'd say some maybe grass. I don't get too much of the oak, but I don't expect this to be overly oaked because it's 4 years and 5 months. And as we know, temperature and weather really impacts how the bourbon ages. This coal mine is going to be colder than anything else that you're going to get. So my guess is it does age on the slower side of things. I would expect this to taste and smell a little younger. The nose itself doesn't smell too young, but what does it taste like on the palate? I just dribbled down myself. Rookie mistake. Okay. Okay. Citrus. Citrus. Like an orange sweet tart is what I would compare this to. It's sweet, but then I'm getting a lot more of that rye spice, but a white pepper spice, not that overpowering rye that kind of overpowers a lot of people. It is a high rye bourbon, but we are going with 10% malted barley as well. You can get a little bit of that. There's still some of that earthiness to it. I don't know what I would call the earthiness, though. It's not peat. There's no smokiness to it. I'd say a little grassy, a little more on the mint side on the palate than on the nose. There's caramel and vanilla on the nose, as I mentioned. It's actually pretty good. I'm very pleasantly surprised. I can definitely tell some of the youth out of this, being that it's 4 years and 5 months old. There's a little bit of that corn ethanol to it. But really, I'm impressed. I would say this is pretty good. There's some of that candiness, as I mentioned. It gets a little more creamy on the back end. The finish itself is enjoyable. It's not overpowering. The rye is not taking over. There's some cinnamon to it, but overall not too much. Overall, this would be a great entry. 103 proof. I mean, that's about where I was thinking 96, 97 was what it tastes more like, but 103 proof, this is good stuff. So $64.95, maybe a little higher than I would feel comfortable paying for this all the time. Again, they are a young company. I believe they started in 2020, so I'm going to assume that this also wasn't totally aged in that mine, because at 4 years and 5 months, we're only in 2024, and I got this in 2023. And if they didn't buy the place until 2020, well, there's no way this was totally aged in the coal mine. But they've got something going here. I'd like to see some of their older expressions down the road and see what their wheated tastes like. I do, as I mentioned, think $64.95 is a little higher there on the spectrum, but not too bad, especially for some of the prices on some of the whiskeys that are out there right now. But again, check them out. They're on Sealbox, their website. You can buy these bottles off of if they're not sold out already. If this is something that interests you, I've got that link in the description below. So it's not necessarily a gimmick. I'll give them that. I think they're onto something here. This does kind of remind me of that Maker's Mark casks, not cask strength, the Maker's Mark cellar series, the cellar aged whiskey, but that's a wheated whiskey. This is higher rye. It does have a little bit of that hint of the Maker's Mark barrel finish, the stay finishes. That's also where they age those after you've done a pick. Those get aged in the cellar at Maker's Mark. So yeah, I'm impressed. I'm not going to say this is the best whiskey I've ever tried. It's not the worst by any means. I think it's right there in the middle. I'm pleasantly surprised. I enjoy this. So a big thank you to Spencer, who introduced me to this. That's my chiropractor, Spencer Wilson. This is from his hometown, right there. They're on the edge of the West Virginia-Kentucky state line, out towards Pike County, Kentucky. So that's on the northeast side of the state. So they've got something going on here. I do know that they are building a distillery and some experiences out there. They expect to be done late here this year, about a $38 million distillery expansion. So that might be something to check out if you're ever in northeastern Kentucky and into western Virginia. Or western West Virginia. So yeah, again, final thoughts. I think that this is not a gimmick. I think that they've got something going on here, and I'm really excited to see what they put out down the road. I did reach out to them via email to see if they can tell me where they were sourcing from. Haven't heard back from them. I don't expect to. I'm assuming down the road they're going to be distilling their own stuff, being that they're building a distillery, but right now it's got to be sourced from somewhere. Where that somewhere is, I don't know, because the Mash Bill 70-2010 really doesn't line up with anything else out there right now. So there you have it. Coal mine aged bourbon. Not a gimmick. I'd buy a bottle again if I saw it, especially at that $65 price or below. I hope you enjoyed this video and got a lot out of this forecast. If you did enjoy it, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button below so you don't miss out on some of my future forecasts coming up. And as always, as we close it out, until next time, remember, it is always whiskey weather. Just please drink responsibly, friends. Have a great day.